Tasha's heart pounded against her ribcage. She stood in the middle of the dark hallway, hearing the echo of her own frantic breathing. The storm outside raged with thunder that shook the walls. Lightning flashed through the long windows, and she could see her reflection on the polished floor. Her eyes were wide with fear. The door at the end of the hallway creaked open. She flinched and stepped back, bracing herself. A silhouette appeared, tall and strong. Her mind flashed back to the events of the last few weeks. She never thought her life would end up like this. She had come from a simple background, and had never dreamed of being in a position where she felt scared in her own home. Yet here she was, trapped in a mansion that felt as cold as a prison. The figure took slow steps toward her. Her heart hammered. She remembered how she had once admired those broad shoulders and welcoming smile. But all of that had changed. Now she was afraid of the very person she had promised, in a haze of confusion, to love and cherish. She still wondered how she had let herself get pulled into such a bizarre marriage. When she looked down at her left hand, the wedding band sparkled under the bright glare of the lightning. She felt a rush of panic swirl in her stomach. Another roar of thunder echoed, making her shrink against the wall. As the figure drew closer, she tried to gather her courage. She inhaled slowly, deciding that she had to stand her ground. But her knees felt weak and her eyes blurred with tears. She had never imagined that a moment which should have been filled with hope and love would turn into an absolute nightmare. This hallway, decorated with expensive paintings, Persian rugs, and gold lamps, felt like a tunnel closing in on her. The paintings stared at her, their eyes seeming to follow her every move. The footsteps slowed. She could smell the faint scent of his cologne. It was a perfume of power, money, and old secrets. She wondered if she truly knew the man she had married. She wondered if, behind his charm, there was an obsession she could not escape. She had tried to leave once. He refused to acknowledge that their marriage had been an accident in the first place. She recalled the first day she met him. She had not suspected for a moment that he was a millionaire. She had not known that he owned half of the city's most expensive properties. She had not even cared about money. But she quickly learned that wealth brought with it a sense of control. And that control was now swallowing her whole. Her breathing grew louder as he stopped just a few steps away. She heard him call her name softly. That was when the lights flickered, and she looked up in time to see everything go black. She screamed when a flash of lightning lit the hallway again, revealing his face. In that brief moment, she saw the determined look in his eyes, a look that told her he would never let her slip away. Then the lights came on, and she found herself alone in the hallway. The front door slammed somewhere downstairs. The silence that followed felt more terrifying than the thunder. She did not know if he had walked away, or if he was still waiting somewhere in the darkness, watching her. Her knees nearly buckled. She reached out to hold onto the wall. Her fingers brushed the smooth wallpaper. As she steadied herself, she tried to decide what to do next. She wanted to flee. She wanted to run as far away from this place as possible. But she remembered the last time she tried to escape. He had shown up at the airport, calm and polite, as though she were a child simply wandering off on a small adventure. He had put his arm around her shoulder and guided her back to his waiting car. He had not raised his voice. He had not threatened her in a loud way, but his grip on her arm had been impossible to break. Now, she was trapped once more, married to a man she barely knew, confined to a mansion that seemed to absorb every shred of her courage, all because of a mistake. All because of a wedding that was supposed to be a favor to a friend. All because she had signed a piece of paper she never should have touched. She wanted to scream at the injustice. She wanted to tear the ring off her finger, but something held her back. Maybe it was fear. Maybe it was the strange undercurrent of affection she still felt for him sometimes, despite the terror in her heart. Lightning struck again, and the thunder rattled the windows. Tasha forced herself to breathe, forced her heart to slow down. She might be in a strange, unsettling place, but she was not helpless. She would figure a way out. Or she would reason with him. Maybe there was a chance that all of this was a misunderstanding. Maybe he was not really trying to keep her here forever. But she remembered the set of his jaw, the possessiveness in his eyes, and she knew that leaving would not be simple. Tasha slowly made her way down the hallway, praying she would find a light switch that worked. Her footsteps echoed. She felt like she was trespassing in a haunted museum. She tried to remember how she got here. She never believed she would end up in a luxury marriage, a millionaire's wife, by accident. It sounded ridiculous. Yet it was her reality. There had to be a turning point that made everything go wrong. She remembered the day she said, "I do," and how, just seconds later, she realized she had spoken those words under false impressions. She had thought she was helping someone she cared about. She had no idea that the man across from her was not who she assumed. She had no clue that her friend had arranged something else behind her back. By the time she figured it out, the official had already stamped the papers, and she was married. Yes, that was the moment her life changed. And now, walking alone in the hallway, with a storm howling outside, she thought back to how innocent she had been. It was almost laughable, in a tragic way. She closed her eyes and tried to remember every little detail, hoping to find a clue to break free from this marriage. But memory was a strange thing. It could be a friend or it could trap you in the same endless circle. She moved closer to the main staircase. This was the same staircase where she had slipped a few days ago when she tried to dash outside. He caught her. He set her on her feet and asked her to be careful. She had wanted to scream, but the words never came out. She swallowed her anger because she did not know what else to do. She still did not know. She peered over the banister, looking into the foyer. It was empty, its marble floor shining. Two large vases stood like silent sentinels on either side of the grand double doors. Outside, the wind hissed, and the rain pelted the windows. She was alone, for now, but that did not bring any comfort. She felt his presence in every shadow, in every corner. She was certain that if she tried to step outside, he would appear as if by magic. There was no way she could remain in this type of situation. She had to do something. She needed to tell her story, even if only to herself. She needed to remind herself how it all began. In the hope that a clue would reveal a way out, she gripped the banister tightly. The memory of their first meeting, the wedding, and everything that followed was about to come rushing back to her. She inhaled, preparing for the wave of emotion that threatened to swamp her. Tasha's eyes burned with unshed tears as she turned and headed into a nearby sitting room. She switched on a small lamp, casting weak light across the fine furniture. The cozy love seat sat in front of a fireplace that had no fire. She sank onto the love seat, took a deep breath, and closed her eyes. In the darkness of her closed eyelids, she began to relive the events that led to her accidental marriage, the way a person rereads a book that has defined their fate. Even as fear gnawed at her, she could not help but recall that, once upon a time, her heart had pounded with a different emotion when she looked at him: curiosity. There had been something in his eyes that called to her before she realized how complicated things were. Now she would unravel every moment, step by step, because to break free. As the storm raged on, Tasha returned in her mind to the day that changed her life. She went back to the warmth of the sun on her shoulders, the smell of fresh coffee, and the sound of a friend's desperate plea that pulled her into a strange, twisted web. Little did she know then that her choice would lead her down the dark corridor of this mansion, in the clutches of a man determined never to let her go. Tasha was used to her daily routine, waking up in her small apartment, making a cup of coffee, and gazing out at the city skyline. She lived on the 5th floor of an old building, the kind of place where the elevator worked on good days. Most mornings, she would just walk down the stairs, bag in hand, her thoughts on the day ahead. That particular morning started with nothing unusual. The sun was shining, and the birds sang outside her window. She brewed her coffee, lightly sweetened, just how she liked it. She planned to run some errands, then go to her part-time job at a local bookstore. She loved books. She loved the smell of the pages, the feel of a story beneath her fingertips. She often joked that she read so much she lived more in fiction than in real life. But that was just fine with her. Her phone buzzed on the table, making her jump. She looked at the screen. It was her friend, Carla. They had known each other since college. Carla was full of life, and often full of drama. "Come quick," Carla's message read. "I need you. Emergency." Tasha felt a sense of alarm rush through her. Carla rarely sent such a short message without explaining. She grabbed her jacket and rushed out the door, skipping breakfast altogether. She hurried down the stairs, passing neighbors who said quick hellos. She pressed her phone to her ear, calling Carla, but no one answered. That only deepened her worry. By the time she reached Carla's apartment, her heart was beating fast. She knocked on the door. When Carla opened it, her eyes were red, like she had been crying. She grabbed Tasha's arm and pulled her inside. The small living room was in chaos. Clothes were strewn about, and half-open suitcases sat on the floor. A single wedding dress, simple but elegant, hung in the corner. "I need your help," Carla said, voice trembling. "I can't do it. I can't marry him." Tasha blinked, surprised. She had heard Carla mention she was engaged, but Carla had never told her much about the man. Tasha had assumed it was a whirlwind romance, but she did not expect to find Carla in such a state. She guided her friend to the couch, letting her slump down as tears began to roll down her face. Carla wiped her cheeks. "I'm sorry. This is all so sudden. Ithies was never supposed to happen. We rushed into it. I don't think I'm ready." Tasha tried to piece everything together. "But you said you loved him," she reminded Carla gently. She tried to remember the few details Carla had given. He was kind. He was stable. He wanted to settle down. Carla shook her head. "I do like him, but not like this. My family already approved. They made me promise, and I can't go through with it. He's a powerful man. He has connections everywhere. I don't know how to break it off without causing trouble for my family." Tasha frowned. She did not fully understand. "What can I do to help? Do you need somewhere to stay?" "No," Carla said, cutting her off. She took Tasha's hands in hers. "There is a big wedding event. It's not your usual small gathering. It's set for this afternoon at City Hall. My family and some of his associates will be there. I need you to step in for me, just for the ceremony." Tasha's eyebrows flew up. "What do you mean? Step in for you?" Carla grabbed Tasha by the shoulders. "Pretend to be me. You just have to stand there, okay? Wear the dress, say the vows, and then slip away before the document is signed or something. I can figure out the details, but please, Tasha, I need to buy time. I can't do this wedding, but I can't face him either. If you do this for me, I promise I'll fix things later. My family is pressuring me. He's expecting me. The whole ceremony is happening in hours." Tasha stared at Carla in disbelief. "That's crazy. Why would I pretend to be you?" Carla cried harder. "He's never actually met my parents in person, or some of my close friends. He's only seen pictures of me. Everything was so rushed. He's not from around here. My parents arranged a lot of it, but Tasha, please. You are the only one I trust. Just help me get through this day without letting the situation blow up." Tasha felt panic crawl up her spine. "Carla, you can't be serious. Marriage is a huge step. This is not a joke. And what about the marriage papers? You can't just vanish." Carla got off the couch and started to pace. "I know it's a huge mess, but I'm desperate. If you go through with it and then disappear, That might scare him off or buy me time to explain I'm not ready. Maybe he'll leave me alone. I just need to avoid the confrontation today. Please, Tasha, I'll owe you for the rest of my life." Tasha's mind whirled with questions. She did not want to involve herself in such a strange plan. But Carla looked so scared, so certain that there was no other way. Tasha had been friends with Carla for years, and she never once saw her that frantic. Maybe this man was truly controlling, or maybe Carla's family had put her in an impossible position. Tasha did not know all the details, but she saw the desperation in Carla's eyes. Finally, Tasha exhaled a shaky breath. "Okay," she said, her voice uneven. "I'll help, but only if we figure out a way so that no one actually signs a real marriage certificate. I don't want to break the law." Carla nodded, relief flooding her face. She hugged Tasha. "You are saving me. Don't worry, I'll handle the paperwork. It'll be purely symbolic. We won't finalize it. And if it looks like it will become real, just slip out. I'm sure we can come up with something." Within 2 hours, Tasha found herself in a whirlwind. She was ushered into Carla's bedroom. A makeup artist arrived, arranged through Carla's mother, who was waiting downstairs. The plan was that Tasha would go down as Carla, wearing the wedding dress and veil. None of the family members had spent much face-to-face time with the groom, so hopefully no one would notice. Carla's mother only cared that the ceremony happened. She was too busy to pay attention to every detail. The groom's associates would recognize Carla only from old photos. The plan was a gamble, but Carla insisted it would work. Tasha thought it was absolute madness. She tried to calm her nerves by reminding herself that she was doing this for a friend who was in trouble. She did not know who this groom was. Carla said he was a wealthy investor who had come from another state, or maybe another country. Carla had not been clear. The wedding had been arranged quickly, something about a contract or a business deal between families. It all sounded like something from a century ago, but Tasha held her tongue. When they arrived at City Hall, Tasha's hands shook. She wore the long white gown, a small veil, and delicate white gloves. Carla's mother clutched her arm, guiding her through the entrance, while Carla remained behind, hiding from sight. Tasha could feel the stares from the small group of guests. She tried to keep her head down. She spotted a tall man near the front. He looked a bit older than Tasha, with sharp cheekbones and dark eyes. He wore a sleek black suit that fit him like a second skin. His posture was confident, and his expression unreadable. "That's him," Carla's mother whispered in Tasha's ear, mistaking Tasha for Carla. She patted her hand. "It will be fine, my dear. You look lovely." Tasha did her best not to turn and run. Her heart fluttered in her chest. She forced herself to move forward. She tried to remind herself that this was just a show. Nothing real was going to happen. Carla would fix the papers. Then Tasha could slip away and let Carla handle the fallout. The judge began the ceremony. Tasha stood facing the tall man. She could feel his gaze on her face, but she avoided eye contact. The vow seemed to go on forever, echoing in Tasha's ears, but she was barely listening. She was only waiting for her cue to slip away. She stuttered but repeated it. Then the man took her hand in his. His grip was warm, strong. Tasha dared to peek up at him. Their eyes met. For a moment, she could not breathe. His stare was intense, as though he saw right through her disguise. She felt heat rush to her cheeks. Her heart galloped like a terrified horse. But he did not expose her. Instead, he offered a small, almost amused smile. Then he slid a ring on her finger. The audience clapped quietly. Some snapping photos. Tasha's mind spun. She glimpsed a piece of paper being handed around, presumably the marriage certificate. She was told to sign. Carla's mother nudged her, a pen in hand. Tasha's instincts screamed to run. But Carla had insisted no real paperwork would be filed. So Tasha scribbled Carla's name and hoped it was all for show. She noticed the groom sign his own name with bold strokes. Then the judge signed. Tasha waited for someone to declare the final step, but it all seemed to happen so fast. By the time Tasha realized they had moved on, her heart dropped to her stomach. The ceremony ended with a final pronouncement. "I now pronounce you husband and wife." The groom gave Tasha a gentle kiss on her cheek. She flinched at his closeness, but no one seemed to notice. The next thing she knew, Carla's mother pulled them both over to greet relatives. Tasha felt as though she had stepped into a dream world. Everything was spinning around her. The new husband introduced himself to a few guests, but Tasha did not catch his name over the noise. She was too shaken to think properly. Her plan was to sneak away as soon as possible, but well-wishers gathered around them. It became impossible to slip out without drawing attention. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Tasha managed to step aside. She glanced around, seeking Carla's face among the crowd, but she did not see her. In her confusion, she turned and found herself almost bumping into the groom. She gasped softly when he blocked her way. "Carla," he said in a deep, quiet voice, "everything all right?" Tasha's stomach twisted. She forced a tight smile and tried to keep her voice steady. "Yes, I need a minute, too many people." He leaned closer, concern in his eyes. She sensed his warmth. "Of course," he replied. She wanted to refuse, but guests were watching. She nodded and followed him through the doors. The bright sun outside felt like a harsh spotlight. They walked a few steps away from the crowd near the side of the building. Tasha could finally breathe. She looked up at him, trying to figure out how to excuse herself. He studied her intently. "You're shaking," he said gently, placing a hand on her arm. "I know this marriage happened quickly. I'm sure it's overwhelming. But trust me, I'll do all I can to make you happy." His soft tone almost made her feel guilty for the lie she was living. She forced a nod. "Thank you," she managed to say. He brushed a strand of hair from her face. She inhaled sharply at the gesture. There was something genuine in his gaze. "I'm looking forward to our future," he added. "I have a surprise planned for us." Tasha's mouth felt dry. She did not like the idea of any more surprises, but she could not protest without raising suspicion. She had to stick to the plan and vanish. She remembered Carla's promise. Just leave before it becomes official. Tasha suspected the wedding was now official, but maybe Carla could still undo it somehow. Tasha just needed to get away soon. Guests started pouring out of City Hall. The groom pulled Tasha back among them, arms around her shoulders. Everyone congratulated them. Tasha felt like she was drowning in a sea of well-wishers. Carla's mother beamed as though all her dreams had come true. Tasha discreetly looked for Carla again, to no avail. Within half an hour, Tasha was ushered into a sleek black limousine, the groom beside her. The plan was to head to a nearby reception hall for a short gathering. Tasha panicked. How could she slip away in a limo full of people? She felt pinned by the seatbelt, pinned by the calm gaze of the man who thought she was his wife. The city streets blurred as they drove to the reception. Tasha's pulse raced. She tried not to look at him, but she could feel his eyes on her. When they arrived, she stepped out, expecting to see Carla pop out somewhere and fix this mess. Instead, more family and friends approached, cheering as they walked into a decorated hall. The place was set for a party, flowers, a buffet, and music playing softly. Tasha was guided to a table where she sat stiffly, greeting guests who came to offer their blessings. Every second felt like an hour. Tasha tried to muster the courage to simply stand up, walk out, and disappear. But she felt paralyzed. She did not want to create a scene or embarrass Carla's mother. She remembered Carla's words, "I'll handle the paperwork." Tasha clung to that hope as time dragged on. Then the groom made a small announcement, tapping a spoon on his glass. Everyone quieted. He thanked them for coming. He apologized for how sudden everything was, but he said they were both happy and ready to start a wonderful life together. Tasha's cheeks burned as the crowd clapped. She felt so dishonest, but she did not know how to stop this train that was speeding out of control. Finally, the reception began to wind down. Carla's mother approached Tasha, kissed her cheek, and said, "I'm so proud of you, my daughter. You've done well. Now you're starting a new life with a fine husband." Her eyes glimmered with tears of joy. Tasha forced a smile, guilt roaring inside her, but she could not ruin this. Not yet. As soon as she got a chance, she would run to Carla and let her set things straight. She excused herself to the restroom. There, she tore off the veil, letting her short black curls fall free. She stared at herself in the mirror. "This is insane," she whispered. "I have to get out of here." She gathered her courage and left the restroom. She took a side exit in the hallway, rushing past a staff member who was too busy carrying a tray to stop her. Her plan was to hail a cab and go home, maybe find Carla. She did not know. All she knew was that she could not keep pretending. She pushed open a door at the end of the hallway, stepping outside into a small alley behind the reception hall. Relief washed over her. She began to walk quickly toward the street, her high heels clicking on the pavement. She was almost at the curb when she heard a voice call her name. She froze. Turning, she saw the groom standing by the alley exit. She had never heard him say Tasha's name before, but he did so now. He stood there, calm yet commanding, a question in his eyes. "Where are you going?" he asked quietly. Tasha swallowed. Had he known her real name all along? Was Carla's entire plan doomed from the start? She opened her mouth, but no words came out. She gripped the handle of her small purse, her heart in her throat. The tall man took a step forward. She did not see anger in his face, nor did she see confusion. Instead, she saw knowledge, like he had known the truth from the moment he looked at her in City Hall. He reached into his pocket, pulled out a small folded piece of paper, and handed it to her. It was the marriage certificate, complete with official stamps and signatures. Tasha's breath caught in her chest. She could read it plainly. Her name, Tasha Johnson, was written in black ink on the line for the bride. The groom's name was Maxwell Reed. Right there, clear as day. She had accidentally signed her own name. Maybe in her confusion she had not signed Carla. She had signed Tasha. Her heart sank as she realized the judge's signature, the official seal, and everything else was valid. She was not faking a marriage. She was legally bound to Maxwell Reed, a man she knew nothing about. Maxwell watched her, his dark eyes calm and intense. "I recognized you from the pictures in Carla's apartment. I did my research. You are Tasha Johnson, her friend. I suspected a switch, so I had a contact check the names you wrote. It's all real, no mistake on the official end." Tasha's head spun. "But that can't be." "You signed your own name," he continued. "My guess is that Carla wanted you to think it was not official, but she never told you how to avoid signing your true name, did she?" Tasha stared at the paper, horror growing inside her. "So we're really married?" He nodded, stepping closer. She could smell his aftershave. "In the eyes of the law, yes." Tasha felt faint. She stumbled back, leaning against the alley wall. This could not be happening. This was all supposed to be a ruse. She had been certain Carla arranged a fake signature or some trick, but Carla must have lied to her. Maybe Carla's plan was to escape everything, leaving Tasha to deal with the consequences. Tears filled Tasha's eyes. She did not know what to say. She had never wanted a marriage, especially not to a complete stranger. Yet the paper in her hand told her otherwise. Maxwell studied her tears. He touched her shoulder gently. "You don't have to cry," he said, his voice low. "I'm not an unreasonable man. But you're my wife now. I'll make sure you don't regret this. Let's discuss the details calmly. We can sort it out." Tasha shook her head. "Sort it out? This is crazy. This is not what I signed up for. Carla tricked me. I'm so sorry. But—" She paused, thinking. "We need to get an annulment. First thing tomorrow. I'll pay any costs." He frowned slightly. "That's a bit hasty. You see, I came here to marry Carla, but I had my doubts about her. When I found out she tried to switch places, I realized she might not have been honest from the start. I know you're innocent in this. I've looked into you. You're a good person, Tasha. I also know you've never been married before. The marriage is valid. I think we should give it a chance." She almost choked on her own breath. "Give it a chance? Why would we do that? We're total strangers." He gave a small shrug. "Strangers can learn about each other. Besides, I have my reasons for not wanting to face the scandal of a broken wedding. My reputation, my business deals, they rely on my stable image. If we get an annulment, it will raise questions. I'd prefer we stay married, at least for a while. Then, if you truly want to leave, we can talk about it in private terms. No messy public drama." Tasha's mouth dropped open. "You can't force me to stay married," she said, voice trembling. "I have a say in this." He nodded. "Of course you do. But consider the impact it would have on Carla's family, your own life, and everything else. I'm not asking you to love me right now. I'm asking you to come with me, see the home I've prepared, and decide if this marriage is truly unbearable. If it is, we can figure out a quiet dissolution. No harm done." She wanted to scream that it was already unbearable, but she also did not want to cause a scene in front of the guests. They were only a few steps away, around the corner. She knew Carla's mother was there, possibly with illusions of a happy union. Tasha felt trapped. She felt manipulated. But Maxwell's voice was calm. He was not yelling or threatening. He was just stating a request, as if it were the most logical thing in the world. Finally, she took a shaky breath. "Fine," she whispered. "We'll talk about it. But I'm not promising anything." He nodded, stepping aside to let her pass. His eyes lingered on her face with an expression Tasha could not read. She walked past him, numb. In a single day, her life had flipped upside down. She was now Mrs. Tasha Reed, if she took his last name. She was married to a man with unknown intentions and a bank account she suspected was huge. Carla was nowhere to be found. Tasha had no idea how to handle this. Inside, the guests had begun to leave. Tasha quietly slipped away from the crowd, hoping to see Carla one last time. Before Tasha could think of a plan, Maxwell came up beside her and guided her to another limousine. Her heart beat wildly. As they drove away from the hall, Tasha stared out the window at the passing streets. She thought of her small apartment, her job at the bookstore, and how normal her life had been just that morning. She did not realize she was crying until Maxwell reached out with a handkerchief. She took it, dabbing at her tears in silence. Yes, she was on her way to a stranger's mansion, her husband's mansion. The thought made her skin crawl. She resolved to find a way out. She promised herself that she would not let this situation consume her. Yet she had no idea how deeply she would be pulled into his world. She did not know that Maxwell Reed was not the sort of man who let go of something or someone he had claimed as his own. Tasha had not seen a house so grand in her entire life. The iron gates opened with a smooth whir as the limousine rolled up the long driveway. Lush green lawns, neatly trimmed hedges, and sprawling flower gardens spread before them. In the distance, a large fountain sparkled in the late afternoon sun. When the car finally stopped in front of the grand entrance, Tasha caught her breath. Marble steps led to an ornate front door framed by tall pillars. Everything about the place screamed wealth and power. She felt her chest tighten. She was a simple woman, used to paying rent on time and counting her budget at the grocery store. She had never imagined living somewhere like this. The chauffeur opened the door, and Maxwell stepped out first, then extended a hand to help Tasha. She hesitated, unsure if she wanted to accept his polite gesture. In the end, she placed her hand in his. There were staff members waiting at the entrance, bowing slightly as they saw their employer and his new wife. Tasha's cheeks flushed when they addressed her as Madam and Mrs. Reed. They were led into a large foyer with a vaulted ceiling and a chandelier that sparkled like thousands of tiny stars. The marble floors gleamed underfoot. A grand staircase curved up to the second floor. Rich paintings in golden frames lined the walls. Tasha felt an urge to take off her shoes so she would not dirty such a place, but no one else seemed concerned. Maxwell turned to her. "Welcome to my home, your home," he said, gesturing around the foyer. "I'll have someone show you to a guest room so you can rest. You've had a long day." Tasha shook her head, trying to clear her thoughts. "No, I'd rather talk first. We need to discuss how we can undo this marriage," she said, her voice wavering between fear and determination. Maxwell nodded. "We will. But freshen up first. I'll be in my study. Take your time." A maid approached, smiling politely. "Madam, please follow me." Tasha found herself following the maid upstairs, too tired and overwhelmed to argue. She glanced over her shoulder, watching Maxwell walk away. He did not look back. The guest room, if one could call it that, was as large as Tasha's entire apartment. A huge bed with a canopy dominated the center of the space, and tall windows offered a view of the gardens. Luxurious furniture with carved details and plush cushions scattered about. Fresh flowers filled a vase on the dresser, perfuming the air with a gentle scent. When the maid left, Tasha sank onto the bed, trying to catch her breath. Everything felt unreal. She had just gone through a wedding ceremony, discovered it was legally binding, and now she was in a stranger's mansion. Her phone vibrated in her purse, startling her. She dug it out, heart leaping in hope that it might be Carla. It was a text from Carla. "I'm so sorry. I had no choice. Please believe me. I couldn't marry him. I'll explain later. Don't hate me." Tasha stared at the message. She wanted to scream at the phone, to demand an explanation right now. But she felt too exhausted to even form words. She tossed the phone aside. There would be time for anger and confrontation later. For now, she needed a plan. She explored the room, noticing an attached bathroom that was bigger than her old living room. A warm bath sounded appealing, but she could not relax. She took off the wedding gown, carefully hanging it over a chair, and slipped into a robe she found on the bed. She stared at her reflection in the mirror. She still had the ring on her finger. The diamond glittered mockingly. Gently, she tried to tug it off, but it fit snugly. She would need soap or lotion to ease it off. She finally turned to go find Maxwell. She walked back into the hallway, uncertain of where to go. The mansion was quiet, the thick carpets muffling her footsteps. She saw no sign of staff until a butler appeared from a side corridor. He bowed slightly. "Would you like me to show you to Mr. Reed's study, madam?" She nodded, murmuring her thanks. He led her through several corridors before stopping at a closed door. He knocked once, then opened it for her. Tasha stepped inside. The study was spacious, with wooden shelves full of leather-bound books. A large desk stood in front of tall windows that looked onto the backyard. Maxwell sat behind the desk, reading some papers. He looked up as she entered. "Please sit," he said, gesturing to a chair opposite him. Tasha sat, clasping her hands in her lap. She tried not to be intimidated by the grandeur around her. She kept her gaze on Maxwell's face, noticing for the first time the slight dark circles under his eyes, as though he was as tired as she was. He set the papers aside. "How are you feeling?" She shrugged, confused, Scared. He nodded slowly. I understand. The situation isn't ideal, but I'd like to talk calmly about it. Tasha pressed her lips together. Fine. I want an annulment. We can say it was a mistake, which it was. We can part ways with no drama. He leaned back in his chair. That's one option. But as I said earlier, I have reasons to prefer a different arrangement. I know Carla orchestrated a switch. It suggests that she never wanted to marry me in the first place. I'm not sure why. Perhaps she just wanted to appease her family or gain some benefit. You're the one who ended up here. Tasha leaned forward, eyes flashing. Exactly. So let me go. We both walk away free. He pursed his lips. When you marry someone in my world, it's not just about personal feelings. It's about business partnerships, public image, and other factors. I understand that must sound shallow, but that is the life I lead. My investors and business associates watch my personal life closely. A sudden annulment raises red flags. It can damage my credibility. Her eyebrows shot up. So you want me to stay married to you so you can save face? He tipped his head slightly. In part. I won't lie, but there's more to it. You're a decent person, Tasha. I did my research. Your record is clean. You have a good heart, and people speak highly of you. I think we could help each other. You want to avoid Carla's family drama and any legal complications from forging a wedding. I want to maintain stability in my professional life. A short-term marriage might solve both problems. After a certain time, we can quietly divorce without a scandal. Tasha's stomach lurched. The word divorce was like a dagger. She never wanted to be in a marriage of convenience. She never imagined she would be married at all under these conditions. Yet she saw logic in his words. If she pushed for a quick annulment, it might trigger problems for Carla and possibly for Tasha herself. If Carla's mother discovered the ruse, she could not predict the fallout. Tasha's thoughts tangled in confusion. He watched her quietly. Then he stood up, moving around the desk, to sit on its edge, in front of her. He clasped his hands. I'm not asking you to share a bed with me, or anything you're not comfortable with. You can have your own space. I do ask that when we appear in public, you act like you're my wife. Greet people with me, accompany me to events. Let's be polite and respectful to each other. In return, I'll ensure you're comfortable and safe. I won't interfere with your personal life, but I'd prefer if you stayed here for now, just to avoid gossip. Tasha ran a hand over her face. This was a lot to process. How long would this arrangement last? He shrugged lightly. Let's say 6 months. That's usually enough time for certain deals to finalize, for talk to die down, and for an exit plan that won't harm either of us. Her shoulders sagged. The idea of living under the same roof for 6 months with a man she did not love felt terrifying. But it might be the lesser evil compared to a messy public scandal and possible legal trouble. She had no idea how to fix the fiasco Carla created. She felt numb, cornered. Do I have any choice? She asked quietly, looking up at him. He stared back with a steady gaze. Yes, you do, he said. I can't physically force you to stay, but I'm urging you to consider the consequences. If we do this on friendly terms, we can both come out unscathed. If you run to a lawyer, it might get complicated. My lawyers are ruthless. I don't want that to happen to you. Tasha believed him. She felt tears threatening again. All right, she said shakily. 6 months. Then we settle a quiet divorce, no strings attached. He nodded. Agreed. And if you change your mind sooner, we can discuss it privately. She glanced down at the ring on her finger. It felt heavier than before. I'll do it, she whispered. But I want your word that you'll let me walk away at the end of these 6 months, no matter what. He did not hesitate. You have my word. The tension in Tasha's chest loosened a fraction. Okay, that's settled, I guess. He sighed softly. Thank you for being reasonable. I know it's not easy. Just then the study door opened, and a maid entered with tea. She set the tray down, poured 2 cups, and discreetly retreated. She picked up the teacup, taking a cautious sip. The soothing warmth eased her nerves a bit. Maxwell spoke again, his tone gentler. "I'll have another room prepared for you. Something more suitable than just the guest room. It will be your personal space. If you need anything, let me know. I'll give you a tour of the house tomorrow. For now, you can rest." Tasha nodded, feeling like she was in a dream. She set the teacup down and stood to leave. "One more thing. This can't be a real marriage. We have to keep it." He met her eyes. "I understand. No expectations." With that, Tasha stepped out into the hallway. Her mind swirled with questions she could not answer. She made her way back to the guest room, ignoring the curious looks from the staff. Once inside, she locked the door. She sank onto the bed and pulled off the ring at last, setting it on the bedside table. Then she lay down, exhaustion stealing over her. 6 months, she repeated in her mind. That was her sentence. She did not know Maxwell, and she was not sure she wanted to. Yet a tiny part of her mind recalled the look in his eyes when he found her in the alley. He had not been cruel or mocking. He had seemed almost intrigued by her. She had no interest in romance with a strange millionaire. She was simply stuck. As night fell, Tasha drifted into a restless sleep, dreaming of heavy gates shutting behind her, locking her inside a golden prison. In her dream, she ran from room to room, searching for a way out, but every door led to another hallway, another locked space. Yet she felt an odd pull to keep exploring, drawn by a faint light at the end of a corridor. She could not see who waited for her there, but she felt the presence looming. It was both comforting and frightening at the same time. When she woke in the morning, she realized that the next 6 months would be the strangest of her life and, perhaps, the ones that changed her forever. The next few days were a blur of confusion and quiet compromise. Tasha found herself settling into the mansion's daily rhythms. Maxwell was often gone early in the morning for business meetings, leaving Tasha to explore the house and gardens in his absence. She still kept the wedding ring off most of the time, only putting it on when they were around the staff or when Maxwell said they had to meet someone important. In truth, Tasha dreaded those meetings. When Maxwell introduced her as his wife, she felt a stab of guilt and unease, but she reminded herself that this was all part of the agreement. She tried to stay polite, offering small smiles to people who congratulated her on the marriage. She would nod at them, thinking of how surreal it was to be called Mrs. Reed. Maxwell, to his credit, did not push her boundaries. He kept a respectful distance, never entering her room uninvited. At mealtimes, he was courteous, asking about her day or if she needed anything. She gave short answers, feeling unsure how to behave around him. She noticed that he watched her carefully. In the evenings, Tasha stayed in her room or wandered the gardens alone. She found solace among the flowers, sometimes sitting by the fountain, listening to the trickling water. It reminded her of simpler times. Back in her tiny apartment, she called her bookstore job to explain she had personal matters and needed some time off. Her boss sounded concerned but agreed to give her a leave of absence. Tasha was not sure if she would ever return to her old life. One morning, she woke up determined to see if Carla had responded to her calls or messages. She found her phone and discovered several texts from Carla, all apologetic but vague. Carla claimed she was abroad, staying with a cousin, trying to avoid her family. She promised to make things right eventually. Tasha felt a mix of anger and sorrow. She typed a single reply, "I'm stuck. Be safe. We'll talk if you ever come back." Then she turned off her phone, frustrated. She still had no explanation as to why Carla had forced her into this. Tasha suspected it had something to do with a financial arrangement. Maybe Carla's family owed a debt to Maxwell. Maybe Carla saw Tasha as an escape route. Either way, Tasha was left to deal with the consequences. Later that day, Maxwell approached Tasha as she was looking through the library. The library was a majestic room with tall shelves filled with books on every subject. Tasha loved escaping there, running her hands along the spines of novels and histories. It was the only room that felt somewhat cozy to her. He walked in, wearing a neat, dark suit, looking every inch the successful businessman. She turned at the sound of his steps. Their eyes met, and an odd tension lingered in the air. She recalled the conversation about them having to appear as a real married couple in public. Now, it seemed they would have to test that arrangement again. He cleared his throat. "I'm attending a charity gala tomorrow evening," he said. "I'd like you to come with me. It's important that people see us together." Tasha let out a slow breath. "Do I have to?" He gave a small nod. "Yes. This event is hosted by people I do business with. My wife's presence is expected. We'll stay for a few hours and then return here." She bit her lip. "I don't have anything to wear." She realized her wardrobe from her old apartment would not fit in with a formal gala. She felt her cheeks heat up at the thought. Maxwell's gaze softened. "I've arranged for a stylist to bring some dresses for you to choose from. They'll be here this afternoon. Don't worry about the cost." Tasha frowned. She disliked being dependent on him for everything, but she had little choice. He nodded, relief in his eyes. "Thank you." She turned away, running her fingertips over a row of books. He lingered there, watching her for a moment. She sensed his presence behind her. When he finally left, she let out a quiet sigh. Life in this mansion was making her feel more like a guest than a partner. Yet she was supposed to be Maxwell's wife. The contradiction gnawed at her. That afternoon a stylist arrived, rolling in racks of elegant dresses, shoes, and accessories. Tasha felt overwhelmed. She had never seen so many designer gowns in one place. The stylist bubbled with enthusiasm, insisting Tasha try various outfits. Tasha emerged again and again in shimmering fabrics, feeling like a model in a fashion show. She settled on a simple, flowing evening gown in deep blue. It was classy yet understated. The stylist fussed with her hair, pinning it up in a neat chignon. Tasha barely recognized herself in the mirror. When the next evening came, Tasha rode in a limousine with Maxwell to the gala. She sat stiffly, hands folded in her lap. Maxwell offered her a soft smile. "You look beautiful," he said quietly. She blushed. "Thank you." She could not deny a small thrill at the compliment. She was only human after all, and it had been a while since someone told her she looked pretty. Yet she reminded herself that this was just a charade. They arrived at the luxurious ballroom, where glittering chandeliers hung from high ceilings, and guests in formal attire mingled. Maxwell placed a hand lightly on Tasha's back as they entered, guiding her through the crowd. Several people approached them with smiles, congratulating them on their recent wedding. Maxwell answered politely, occasionally glancing at Tasha to see if she had anything to add. She only nodded shyly. Tasha felt like an outsider in this world of wealth. She caught fragments of conversations about investments, properties, and foreign markets. She felt out of place, yearning for the comfort of the bookstore or her old apartment. Every so often, she felt Maxwell's warm hand on her elbow, steadying her when she looked lost. She glanced up at him, seeing how easily he navigated the crowd, smiling and shaking hands. He was in his element. A tall woman with a sharp gaze approached. "Maxwell," she greeted, pressing a kiss to his cheek. She turned to Tasha. "So this is your wife? My goodness, she's lovely." The woman's eyes were curious, searching Tasha's face. Tasha managed a smile. "I'm Tasha," she said softly. "Pleasure to meet you," the woman replied, though Tasha sensed a bit of suspicion behind her pleasant tone. I'm Veronica. Maxwell and I have been business associates for some time. We were all surprised he married so quickly." Tasha forced a laugh. "Yes, it was unexpected." Veronica smiled, but it did not reach her eyes. She turned back to Maxwell. "So, will you still be making that trip to Tokyo next month?" Maxwell gave a slight shrug. "That's the plan, but I'll see how things go with Tasha. We're still settling into married life." Veronica's gaze shifted between them. "Of course. Marriage changes everything." She gave Tasha one more curious look before walking away. Tasha released a breath she did not realize she was holding. Maxwell noticed her tension. "Don't worry about Veronica," he said quietly. "She can be nosy, but she won't cause trouble." Tasha nodded, still feeling uneasy. The evening dragged on with more introductions, more polite chit-chat. Eventually, Maxwell guided Tasha to a quieter corner where a buffet was arranged. They got plates of food. Though Tasha's appetite was small, she nibbled on a few items, sipping water. When the music started, some guests began to dance. Maxwell glanced at Tasha. "Would you like to dance?" Tasha hesitated. She was not much of a dancer, and the idea of dancing with him under the watchful eyes of these socialites made her stomach flutter with nerves. But a quick look around told her it would be expected for them to share at least one dance as husband and wife. "All right," she said softly. Maxwell took her hand and led her to the dance floor. A slow melody played, and Tasha placed one hand on his shoulder while he held her other hand. They began to sway gently. She was acutely aware of the closeness, the warmth of his hand at her waist. She kept her gaze down, not sure where else to look. He spoke softly near her ear. "You're doing fine. Just follow my lead." She nodded. The dance felt like it lasted hours, yet it was only a few minutes. She became aware of the slight scent of his cologne, the quiet strength of his arms. She remembered the day she feared him in the dark hallway, but at this moment, he seemed gentle. She did not know what to make of the contrasting emotions swirling within her. When the dance ended, they received polite applause from nearby guests. Tasha felt her cheeks burn. She let go of Maxwell's hand as soon as she could. For the rest of the evening, she stayed close by his side but avoided his gaze. She kept reminding herself this was just a temporary arrangement. They left the gala around midnight. Inside the limo, Tasha felt exhausted. Maxwell seemed thoughtful, looking out the window at the city lights. After a moment, he turned to her. "Thank you for coming tonight. You did well." She managed a tired smile. "It was overwhelming, but I got through it." He nodded. "We won't need to do events like this too often, but there may be more. I appreciate your willingness." She leaned her head against the seat. "I'm doing it for me too," she admitted quietly. "I need this situation to stay calm." He watched her with a gentle expression. "You're handling it better than I expected." They rode in silence after that. Tasha stared at the city lights, wondering what her life would be like if she had never opened Carla's message that day. She felt a surge of anger toward her friend for placing her here, but she also felt a tiny spark of curiosity about Maxwell. He had not acted like the controlling monster she feared. He was polite, almost caring. Still, she reminded herself, people often reveal new sides of themselves over time, and she should not let her guard down. When they arrived at the mansion, Tasha went straight to her room, slipping out of the blue gown and into comfortable pajamas. She expected to fall asleep quickly, but her mind would not rest. She found herself thinking about how Maxwell's hand felt around hers during the dance, the way his eyes lit up when he introduced her to people. She pushed those thoughts away. A month passed like this. Tasha learned to live under the same roof as Maxwell without too much friction. She began to take walks around the estate, sometimes visiting the stable where a few horses were kept. The staff were friendly but always respectful to a fault. She missed the casual chats she used to have at the bookstore or with her neighbors. It was lonely in this huge mansion, even though she was never truly alone. The tension between her and Maxwell slowly shifted. They shared small laughs at the dinner table when something funny came up. He occasionally teased her about her fondness for reading novels in the garden. She noticed he worked extremely hard, often returning late at night. She began to see that behind his wealth was a man who shouldered countless responsibilities. She still did not trust him fully, but she started to understand him better. One evening, they sat in the lounge after dinner. Maxwell held a glass of wine, while Tasha sipped water. A crackling fire glowed in the fireplace. Maxwell leaned back in his seat. "I heard from the staff that you've been visiting the stables. Do you like horses?" She nodded. "I've never ridden one before, but I think they're beautiful." A small smile touched his lips. "I can arrange lessons if you like." Tasha hesitated. She was wary of letting him do favors for her, but she also felt a spark of excitement. She had always wanted to learn to ride. "That might be nice," she admitted. He nodded, swirling the wine in his glass. "Consider it done." They fell into an easy silence. Tasha tried to remain calm, but a question lingered in her mind. She decided to voice it. "Why are you so calm about all this?" she asked softly. "Most men wouldn't just accept a stranger as their wife." He took a sip of his wine, then set the glass on a side table. "I told you, this arrangement serves a purpose for me. I made a promise to certain people, and this helps keep things smooth. But I also don't believe in forcing someone to do what they hate. I can see you're trying. That's enough for now." Tasha nodded, absorbing his words. She appreciated his honesty, even if it felt incomplete. She suspected there was more beneath the surface, but she did not press. Already, their conversation felt more open than before. She realized they were slowly forming a fragile bond, not based on love, but on a shared predicament. That night, in her room, Tasha could not help but feel a small seed of gratitude. Maxwell might have been stubborn about keeping the marriage, but he was not cruel or unreasonable. She began to wonder if 6 months would pass with less difficulty than she feared. Perhaps they could part ways amicably. She tried not to dwell on the strange ache she felt when she thought of leaving after the 6-month mark. The next weeks brought more of the same routine. Maxwell taught Tasha the basics of his business to prepare her for attending certain dinners. In turn, Tasha helped reorganize the library, surprising Maxwell with her knowledge of cataloging. They found a quiet rhythm, a sort of friendship. Tasha often thought it was too good to last. She wondered when something would disrupt their fragile peace. Then, one late evening as Tasha was about to go to bed, her phone buzzed with a text. It was from Carla again, cryptic and panicked. "I'm sorry. Things are worse than I thought. Don't believe everything you hear. Watch your back around Maxwell. I'll explain soon." Tasha read the words, her heart sinking. She stared at the phone, questions racing through her mind. Had Carla discovered something about Maxwell? Tasha's hands shook as she read the message again. She turned off her phone, feeling fear coil in her stomach. She realized that, for the first time, she had begun to feel a shred of trust toward Maxwell. But Carla's warning threatened to shatter that fragile trust. Tasha was left sleepless, staring at the ceiling, wondering if she had been naive. Did Maxwell have a side to him she had not seen yet? Was he a threat waiting to reveal itself? Tasha closed her eyes, recalling the day in that dark hallway when she felt genuinely afraid. She remembered the pounding of her heart, the sense of being pursued. She shivered at the thought. Maybe she had let her guard down too soon. Restless, Tasha got up and went to the window, looking out at the moonlit gardens. She felt a storm of emotions building, the sense that something big was coming. The words of Carla's text replayed in her mind. Watch your back around Maxwell. Could she still trust him? Or was her accidental husband hiding a darker truth behind his polite smile? As the night stretched on, Tasha realized that her journey had only begun. She could sense a turning point on the horizon. She was caught in a marriage that was as real on paper as any other one that might become a trap if the man she was living with had secrets she could not imagine. Tasha looked at the ring she had placed on the nightstand. It sparkled under the moonlight, looking both beautiful and ominous. Somewhere, the clock chimed midnight, echoing through the silent halls. Tasha remained by the window, heart heavy with uncertainty, bracing herself for whatever twist lay ahead. Over the following days, Tasha could not shake Carla's warning from her mind. She found herself watching Maxwell more closely, looking for any signs of deceit. At times, she felt guilty for doubting him. He had treated her with respect and patience, yet she also remembered how easily he had convinced her to remain married, how he had not been fazed by the switched identities. It was possible he had known much more than he let on. She began to search for clues. She explored the mansion with a sharper eye, observing any locked doors or rooms. She noticed a single door on the third floor that was always locked, but she did not know why. The staff avoided talking about it. When she asked, they bowed their heads and said it was Mr. Reed's private storage. She found it odd, but she did not want to raise suspicion by insisting. One night, she slipped out of her room, quietly wandering the halls. She had become familiar with the layout. She noticed the guards outside the house, patrolling the grounds. Maxwell's security was tight, but it never felt oppressive. She headed to the library, thinking she might find records or documents about Maxwell's business dealings. Perhaps she would discover something that explained Carla's fear. In the library, she carefully scanned the titles. Most were standard literature, history books, or art collections. She found a locked cabinet, but no key. She tried to open it, to no avail. As she stood there, frustration building, she heard the door behind her open. She whirled around, heart hammering. Maxwell stood in the doorway, watching her with an unreadable expression. He wore a casual sweater and trousers, his hair slightly messy, as if he had just woken up. Tasha forced a small laugh. "Yes, I thought I'd read." He glanced at the locked cabinet. "That one holds some rare manuscripts. I keep it locked for preservation." She nodded, stepping away from it. Her cheeks felt warm. She wondered if he suspected her of snooping.
"I see."
He walked closer, folding his arms. "I don't mind you being curious, Tasha. You live here now. You're free to explore. If there's something you want to know, you can always ask." She looked away, fiddling with a nearby book spine. "Maybe I'm just not used to your world. Everything is so secret, so guarded." He studied her carefully. "My work involves sensitive deals. Privacy is important. It's not because I'm hiding some dark secret." Tasha's heart leaped at his words. He sounded almost defensive. Was that the truth, or was he just good at lying? She could not decide. "All right," she said, forcing a nod. He reached out, gently tilting her chin so she would meet his eyes. She felt her pulse quicken at the contact. "I'm not your enemy," he said quietly. "I know you don't trust me fully, but I promise I won't harm you." She swallowed. She could not bring herself to mention Carla's warning. Instead, she stepped back, creating some space. He let his hand drop, watching her with a flicker of disappointment in his eyes. She sensed he wanted something more from her, maybe closeness or warmth, but she was not ready. Her doubts were too strong. "I think I'll head back to bed," Tasha said softly. Maxwell nodded. "Sleep well." She left quickly, feeling his gaze follow her. Back in her room, she leaned against the door, breathing hard. She felt torn. On one hand, he seemed genuine, even caring. On the other, Carla had warned her to be cautious. Tasha decided she had to remain on guard. She could not let herself fall for any kindness. The next morning, Tasha checked her phone again. Carla had sent no new messages. Tasha spent time outside, tending to a small flower patch with the gardener's permission. She found comfort in simple tasks, like planting seeds and watering them. She tried to ignore the creeping sense of unease. That evening, Maxwell announced he would be traveling out of state for 2 days on business. Tasha felt a wave of relief, thinking she could relax without his watchful presence. At the same time, she felt an odd sting of disappointment. She realized that she had grown used to his company in some strange way. He left early the next morning. Tasha spent the day reading by the fountain, wandering the house, and chatting with the staff about trivial matters. By late afternoon, a sudden urge to explore overcame her. She decided to investigate the locked door on the 3rd floor. Maxwell was gone, so maybe she could find a way inside. Careful not to attract attention, Tasha slipped upstairs. The corridor was empty, the thick carpet muffling her footsteps. She tried the handle of the locked door. It did not budge. She crouched down, examining the lock. It seemed sturdy. She glanced around, spotting a small decorative table nearby. On it was a vase of fresh flowers and a single drawer. Curious, she opened the drawer and, to her surprise, found a ring of keys. A quick glance over her shoulder confirmed she was still alone. Heart pounding, she picked up the keys and tried them on the door. One of the smaller keys clicked. Tasha exhaled softly and turned the handle, stepping inside. She closed the door behind her quietly, flipping on a nearby light switch. The room was filled with crates, boxes, and shelves, stacked with files. It looked like a storage space, as the staff had said. But she wondered why Maxwell needed it locked. She moved closer to the shelves. Old papers, business documents, and some locked metal boxes lined them. Her eyes flickered over labels. Project Skyline, merger plans, confidential. She felt a pang of guilt for snooping, but Carla's warning pushed her forward. She opened a random box. Inside, she found pages detailing land acquisitions, property deeds, and so on. It all seemed legitimate, nothing sinister. Then she noticed a smaller box in the corner with no label. She carefully lifted the lid. Her heart skipped a beat. There were several photographs inside. The top one showed a young Maxwell with a woman Tasha did not recognize. They were smiling, standing outside a beach house. The next photo showed the same woman wearing a ring, presumably an engagement ring. A swirl of jealousy tugged at Tasha unexpectedly. She reminded herself it was none of her business. She flipped through more photos. She saw Maxwell standing with men in suits, shaking hands. Another with Maxwell and the same mystery woman, who looked very much in love. Tasha wondered who she was. An ex-fiancé? A first wife? She saw no wedding photos, so maybe it never got that far. She found some letters in the box, too. They were written in a neat cursive. She skimmed the lines. They spoke of heartbreak, betrayal, and a rushed departure. Tasha caught phrases like, "You lied to me, Max," and "I can't believe you do this," scrawled on one letter. A cold sensation crept along Tasha's spine. She set the letters aside, a sour taste in her mouth. So Maxwell had been involved in a serious relationship that ended badly. Was that the big secret? Tasha looked around, feeling a little foolish for rummaging through his private memories. Yet curiosity nagged at her. She pulled out a folder from the same box, opening it to find more documents. This time, they were medical records. She read a line, "Patient, Maxwell Reed, condition, mild heart arrhythmia." Another line, "Strictly confidential." Tasha's brow furrowed. She had no idea Maxwell had a heart condition. She felt a twinge of concern, along with guilt at reading such personal information. As she placed the folder back, she noticed a single page had slipped out. She picked it up, scanning it. It was not a medical document, but an email printout. The words jolted her. Payment arrangement for Tasha Johnson. We will provide financial support to Tasha Johnson in exchange for her cooperation. Her mind went blank. She reread the line. It specifically mentioned her name, Tasha Johnson. What did that mean? Financial support for her cooperation? She stared at the page, mouth dry. Was Maxwell paying Carla to lure Tasha into this marriage? Or was he paying Tasha somehow without her knowledge? She skimmed further, but the page was incomplete, like only a snippet had been printed. She could not see who sent it or the date. All she could see was, "This must remain undisclosed. She should never find out. Her involvement is crucial to the finalization of the business arrangement. Keep all details away from public." Tasha's hands shook. She felt dizzy. This looked like proof Maxwell had some hidden deal involving her from the start. The mention of Carla's scheme now made sense. Maybe Carla had been promised money or relief from some family debt if she made Tasha marry Maxwell. Tasha fumed with anger and betrayal. She remembered how Maxwell insisted on keeping the marriage for 6 months, how he seemed so calm about everything. She quickly returned the paper to the folder, put everything back in the box, and closed it. Her heart hammered. She glanced around, making sure nothing looked disturbed. She locked the room again, placing the ring of keys back in the drawer. Then she rushed to her room, chest tight, mind spinning. If Maxwell had orchestrated this from the beginning, then Carla's frantic apology and warning made sense. Maybe Carla had been trapped in some arrangement, and she panicked at the last minute, pushing Tasha into the role. Tasha felt furious at both Carla and Maxwell. Carla for betraying her trust, and Maxwell for manipulating her life. She locked herself in her room, tears burning her eyes. She wanted to pack her things and run. But she knew Maxwell's security was everywhere, and the marriage was legal. It would not be easy to simply vanish. She paced the floor, emotions boiling. Finally, she grabbed her phone and called Carla's number. It rang, but there was no answer. She left a voicemail, voice trembling with anger and fear. "Carla, I found out about the financial arrangement. If you know more, call me back. I'm done being lied to. I want out." As she hung up, a wave of despair washed over her. She sank onto the bed, burying her face in her hands. She felt trapped, betrayed, and alone. The quiet mansion seemed to mock her, each pristine room a testament to the life Maxwell had built on secrets. She could not deny that she had seen a kinder side to Maxwell, but now she wondered if it was just a mask. That night, she slept poorly, haunted by nightmares. She dreamed of Maxwell chasing her through the mansion, calling her name, telling her she could never leave. She saw Carla, too, watching from a distance, her face filled with guilt. The dream ended with Tasha collapsing in a dark corridor, the ring on her finger glowing like a chain. When morning arrived, Tasha woke up determined. She had to confront Maxwell. She had to expose him or demand answers. But she also knew she needed a strategy. He was not just some random person. He was powerful and had resources everywhere. If she rushed into accusing him, he might shut her down. She thought about gathering more evidence, but the risk of being caught was high. She considered going to the police, but she did not know if any crime had been committed. The marriage was technically legal. She was not sure how to proceed. Maxwell was due to return that evening. Tasha spent the day avoiding the staff, staying mostly in her room. She felt her emotions swinging between rage and confusion. She recalled the gentle way Maxwell had looked at her during their dance, how he had offered to teach her to ride horses. Could a person be both kind and manipulative at once? By late afternoon, she heard the sound of a car pulling up. She peeked through the window and saw Maxwell stepping out of a sleek black sedan. He spoke briefly with someone, then entered the house. Tasha's heart pounded. She knew a confrontation was inevitable. She paced, telling herself she would remain calm. She had to control her fury, or she would not get the answers she needed. A knock on her door startled her. She tensed, crossing the room to open it. Maxwell stood there, looking a bit tired but offering a small smile. "I'm back," he said quietly. "How have you been?" She stepped aside. "Come in," she said, her voice clipped. He walked in, eyebrows drawing together at her tone. She closed the door behind him, then turned to face him, arms crossed. He seemed to sense her mood. "Is something wrong?" he asked, caution in his eyes. She swallowed hard, words tumbling in her mind. She considered her approach. Finally, she decided to be direct. "I found some documents in your locked storage room," she said. "Documents mentioning my name, referring to a financial agreement for my cooperation. Care to explain?" His expression instantly changed. A flicker of alarm crossed his face, followed by something else, maybe regret. "You went into the locked room?" he said, voice low. She felt anger surge. "Yes, and I saw proof that you were involved in some secret plan, that you might have bribed Carla or arranged for me to be tricked into this marriage. Is that true?" He hesitated, pressing his lips into a thin line. Tasha's heart sank, seeing that he did not deny it right away. She felt her pulse pounding in her ears. Finally, he raked a hand through his hair. "It's complicated," he began. She cut him off. "I deserve the truth. Did you pay Carla or her family to set me up as your wife?" He drew in a slow breath. "I knew Carla was in financial trouble. She owed money to some people with dangerous connections. I wanted to help her, but I also needed someone I could trust. I found out about you through Carla's stories. She talked about how loyal you were, how strong your morals were. I thought if Carla could bring you into a marriage, it might solve multiple problems. Carla would be free of her debt, and I would have a wife who wasn't after my fortune." Tasha stared at him, fury rising. "You planned this from the start? So Carla was forced to do your bidding?" Maxwell held up his hands defensively. "I didn't force her," she agreed. "She said you would be the perfect person. But she got cold feet, or maybe she felt guilty. She ran away at the last minute, leaving you to take her place." Tasha's voice shook. "You manipulated us both. Why me? You don't even know me." He stepped forward, expression pained. "Because I was tired of all the gold diggers and fake relationships in my world. I wanted someone genuine, but I couldn't risk a long courtship. My business demanded I marry quickly to secure an important deal with certain partners who believe in family stability. Carla's debts gave me leverage to push for this arrangement. I regret that it happened in such a deceptive way, but once you were involved, I saw how good-hearted you were. I thought we could make it work." Tasha clenched her fists. "You used me. This was never about some random accident. You orchestrated everything." His eyes flickered with guilt. "Yes, but, Tasha, you have to believe me. My intentions were not to hurt you. I was desperate." She let out a bitter laugh. "Well, you succeeded in hurting me anyway. I trusted you, at least a little. Now I find out you planned the whole thing. What did you think would happen when I found out?" He looked pained. "I hoped you wouldn't. I planned to tell you eventually, but I needed the timing to be right." She shook her head in disbelief, tears forming in her eyes. "This is insane. I want out. I want this marriage ended now." He reached for her hands, but she jerked away. His voice was thick with urgency. "Tasha, wait. Even if we divorce now, things will get messy. I can't guarantee your safety. Carla's creditors know about the arrangement. They might come after you, thinking you have access to my money. Please, let me protect you." She glared at him through her tears. "I don't need your protection. I just need you to let me go." He sighed, his face pale. "Let's talk this through calmly. I'll give you a choice. If you truly want to leave, I won't stop you. The people Carla dealt with are dangerous. She hesitated, remembering Carla's debts. Could that threat spill over to her now that she was legally married to Maxwell? Her chest tightened with fear, but she refused to let him manipulate her any further. She took a shaky breath. "I need time," she said. "I can't think straight right now." He exhaled, nodding. "Take all the time you need." "I'm sorry, Tasha. I really am." She turned away, feeling her tears spill. She did not want him to see her cry. He hesitated, then quietly left the room, closing the door behind him. Once he was gone, Tasha sank onto the bed, sobbing into her hands. She felt betrayed and foolish for starting to trust him. Everything had been a lie. She wished she could run and never look back. But a new worry blossomed. The mention of creditors, dangerous people. Could she really leave without risking her life? Or was Maxwell just using fear to keep her close? Her mind spun with questions. She felt alone in a way she never had before. She pressed her face into the pillow, letting her grief wash over her. Eventually, she cried herself into an uneasy sleep, the storm of emotions swirling in her nightmares. She dreamed of being chained to the mansion, of Maxwell whispering apologies as he locked the gates. She dreamed of Carla standing outside, tears in her eyes, calling Tasha's name. Tasha tried to scream, but her voice was gone. The ring on her finger felt heavier than ever, dragging her down into darkness. When she woke, her pillow was damp with tears, and the sky outside was still dark. She could not bear to stay in bed. She hated that part of her still believed he was not purely evil. She felt something stir in her, an emotion she did not want to name. No matter what she felt, the truth remained. He had trapped her in this marriage through manipulation. Now she had to decide whether to break free or let herself remain in his world. But she also remembered the deep worry in his voice about her safety. Maybe there was more danger than she realized. Her hands trembled at the thought. One thing was certain, her heart was far from calm. The final conflict was looming. The time for decisions was near. She only hoped she could make the right one and find a way to reclaim her freedom. Outside, the night stretched on. Tasha stood at the window, watching the moonlight glimmer on the fountain. She felt as if she stood at the edge of a cliff, waiting to see if she would fall or if someone would catch her. The hush of the mansion pressed in around her, and she realized that, despite the grandness of her surroundings, she had never felt more trapped or more alone. Yet, in the midst of her despair, a single resolve formed. Whether it meant leaving or fighting for the truth, Tasha vowed that when daylight came, she would no longer hide from the storm gathering around her. She would meet it with whatever courage she had left. Little did she know, the next day would bring the final pieces of the puzzle, pushing her to make a choice that would decide her fate and her heartens and for all. Morning arrived with a quiet stillness. Tasha washed her face, avoiding her reflection in the mirror. She dressed in a simple blouse and jeans, refusing to wear any of the luxurious clothes Maxwell had provided. Her mind was made up. She would talk to Maxwell again, calmly, and see if he would help her leave for good. The mention of dangerous creditors worried her, but she could not live under his control. She stepped out into the hallway, half expecting to see Maxwell waiting. The corridor was empty. She made her way downstairs. In the foyer, she found a note from Maxwell left on a small table. "Tasha, I had an early meeting. I'll be back by lunch. Please wait for me. We'll discuss everything. Maxwell." She crumpled the note in her hand, a surge of frustration flaring. She did not want to wait. She went into the living room, pacing restlessly. The minutes crawled. Eventually, she heard a knock on the front door. One of the staff answered it. Tasha peered around the corner curiously. To her shock, Carla stood there, looking disheveled, dark circles under her eyes. Tasha hurried forward. "Carla, what are you doing here?" Carla looked at Tasha, guilt clouding her features. "I had to come. I got your messages. I'm so sorry, Tasha. I never meant for things to go this far. Tasha waved the staff member away, guiding Carla into a sitting room for privacy. She crossed her arms, glaring at her so-called friend. You betrayed me, she said, anger trembling in her voice. You sold me out to Maxwell. Carla sank onto a couch, tears gathering in her eyes. It's not that simple. My family owed a massive debt to some criminals. They threatened to hurt us if we didn't pay. Maxwell heard about it and offered a deal. If I married him, he'd pay off everything. I didn't think he'd make it real. I swear, Tasha, I was desperate. Tasha fought the urge to shout. So you used me, your friend, as a scapegoat? Carla pressed her hands to her face. Yes, and I hate myself for it. I was wrong. I tried to fix it, but I made a bigger mess. Now the creditors know there was a swap. They're after me again, and they might come for you. Tasha's stomach churned. She recalled Maxwell's warning about danger. So Maxwell was telling the truth? They might come after me because they think I have his money? Carla nodded. Yes. He's wealthy, so they figure you're an easy target. They want to force you to pay them, or they'll do worse things. I came to warn you. I think they already have men watching the estate. Tasha felt fear coiling in her gut. She paced back and forth. So I really can't just walk away safely. Carla shook her head. Not without protection. Maxwell can protect you, but I know you're angry at him. Still, you might need him right now. Tasha paused, the weight of the situation sinking in. She resented that, once again, her choices seemed stripped away. I want you out of my life, she whispered. I can't look at you without feeling betrayed. But I also understand you were desperate. For now, just leave. If those men see you here, it might cause trouble. Carla wiped her tears, nodding. I'm sorry, Tasha. Truly. She rose, stumbling toward the door. Before she left, she looked back once more, voice trembling. Be careful. Maxwell isn't a bad man, but he's ruthless in business. If he wants something, he'll do anything to get it. Tasha watched Carla go, her mind whirling. Once the door closed, Tasha sank onto the sofa, numb. Carla's revelations made everything clear. Maxwell orchestrated the scheme, but he was also her best hope for safety. Tasha's anger and fear churned, leaving her uncertain. Around noon, Maxwell returned. Tasha heard the front door open and his footsteps in the foyer. She stood, bracing herself. He entered the sitting room, meeting her gaze. She saw concern etched on his face. Tasha, he began. I heard Carla was here. The security cameras alerted me. She straightened her shoulders. She told me everything. About the debt, about your arrangement. She warned me about the men who might come after me. She paused, swallowing her pride. I need protection. But I don't want to stay in this marriage any longer than necessary. He exhaled slowly. You can stay here until we deal with the threat, or you can go to a safe house I own. I won't force you to remain in my home if it's too painful, but you'll still be my wife, on paper, until we settle matters. She studied him, heart pounding. Why? Why keep the marriage at all? His gaze softened. Because divorcing now, in the middle of this chaos, will make you vulnerable. And because I find that I don't want to let you go yet. He stopped, looking away for a second, then continued in a lower voice. I did lie about how this marriage started, but my feelings have changed. I care about you, Tasha. I want to earn your forgiveness. Her chest tightened with a confusing mix of anger and a spark of something else. You can't fix betrayal with a few words. He nodded, face drawn. I know, but let me protect you from these threats. Then, if you still want to leave, I'll sign the divorce papers. No strings attached. She thought carefully. That's basically what you said at the start, only now I know it's all built on deception. He swallowed. Yes, But some deceptions are born out of desperation. I'm not saying it was right. I'm just saying I did what I did to fulfill my obligations, to protect my business, and yes, to find a partner I could trust eventually. I didn't expect to care about you this much. Tasha's pulse raced. She felt torn in half. Part of her wanted to run. Part of her felt drawn to the sincerity in his eyes. She remembered Carla's words about him not being bad, just ruthless. Could it be that Maxwell truly cared? She took a deep breath. Fine, I'll stay, for now, but only until the creditors are dealt with. Then we can talk about next steps, understood? Relief flickered across his face. Understood. Thank you. Over the next few days, Tasha remained in the mansion under tightened security. Maxwell hired extra guards, ensuring she was never alone outside. He spent hours in phone calls and meetings, trying to negotiate with the criminals who held Carla's debt. Tasha caught snippets of his conversations, hearing the steel in his voice as he threatened legal action or used his connections to clamp down on them. She saw his ruthless side, but it was aimed at protecting her. It baffled her. One evening, Maxwell found Tasha in the garden, sitting on a bench under a blooming magnolia tree. He sat beside her, quietly handing her a cup of tea. She accepted it, though her heart still beat uneasily around him. After a silent moment, he spoke. I'm making progress. They know I won't back down. They also realize you're under my protection. That should keep them from trying anything. Tasha stared at the petals scattered around her. Thank you, she said softly. I never asked for your protection, but I'm grateful. He nodded, turning his gaze to the horizon. I'll handle the rest. Once this is over, I'll release you from any obligation. If you wish to leave me, I won't stop you. Tasha's eyes burned with unspoken emotion. She felt the bitterness of betrayal clashing with a strange sense of closeness that had grown during their time together. Is that what you really want? She asked, her voice trembling. He shook his head, jaw tight. No, I want you to stay, but only if you can forgive me. Her chest ached. I don't know if I can. He placed a hand lightly on hers, warm and steady. Then I'll live with the consequences. Tasha allowed his hand to remain for a moment, feeling a surge of conflicting emotions. She pulled away gently, tears in her eyes. She left him there, the scent of magnolia filling the air. That night, she lay awake, thinking of the times he had been kind, of the sincerity in his eyes. The next morning brought a startling development. Maxwell informed Tasha that the criminals had been caught in a sting operation he orchestrated with a few allied investors. Carla's debt was wiped clean. The threat was gone. Tasha was free to leave or stay. Shocked, she realized he had done all of this, risking his own resources to ensure her safety. They sat in his study, where he handed her a set of documents. These are divorce papers, he said quietly. If you sign them, I'll sign them, and you're free. I'll give you enough funds to start fresh wherever you like. I'm sorry for everything. Tasha's hands trembled as she accepted the documents. She stared at the lines that would dissolve their marriage. She remembered the day she had accidentally signed the marriage certificate, how surreal it felt. Now, here she was, able to erase that bond just as quickly. Her mind spun. She had hated him for deceiving her, for orchestrating a marriage behind her back. But she also remembered the nights they spent talking, the kindness he showed when she was scared, his quiet support. He had manipulated her, yes, but he had also proven capable of genuine care. Could she forgive him? She set the papers down, her eyes finding his. Why did you do all of this for me, after everything? He looked vulnerable, his usual confidence shaken. Because I realized I don't want a life without you in it. You can hate me, but I've come to love you, Tasha. I know that's hard to believe, but it's the truth. Tasha's breath caught in her throat. She felt tears pricking her eyes again. For a moment, she could not speak. Then she slowly stood, clutching the papers. "I need some air." He nodded, looking pained, as though he feared she would never return. She left the study, heart pounding. She walked through the foyer and out the front door, down the steps to the gardens. The midday sun warmed her skin. She found herself standing by the fountain, water sparkling in the light. She thought of her old life, the cramped apartment, the job at the bookstore, the simple dreams. She thought of the craziness of these past weeks, the mansion, the high society galas, the fear and confusion. She thought of Maxwell's determined eyes, his kindness, his deception, and his love if it truly was love. In her turmoil, she realized that the strongest feeling coursing through her was not hatred but heartbreak at the thought of leaving him. When had she come to care so deeply? Perhaps in all those moments they shared, an invisible bond had formed. She remembered how he looked at her during their first dance, how he tried to respect her space, how he had protected her from every threat. The lies were real, but so was the care he showed. She saw that people could do the wrong things for reasons they believed were right. She knew forgiving would not be easy, but maybe it was possible to start fresh. The question was, did she want to? She looked at the divorce papers in her trembling hands. If she signed them, she could walk away, free and clear. But part of her could not deny that she wanted to see if his love was true, if they could build something honest from the wreckage of their fake marriage. Slowly, deliberately, she tore the papers in half, letting the pieces flutter into the fountain. Tasha turned and walked back to the house. Maxwell was waiting in the foyer, tension etched on his face. He looked up, spotting her empty hands. His eyes widened, flicking between her face and her trembling fingers. She stepped forward, heart thudding. "I won't sign them," she said softly. "But only if we do this right. No more secrets, no more lies. We start over and see where it takes us." A wave of relief and joy washed over his features. He crossed the space between them and gently cupped her face in his hands. She felt tears sliding down her cheeks. She waited for her body to recoil, but instead, she felt warmth flood her, a sense of acceptance. "I promise," he whispered, resting his forehead against hers. "I'll do whatever it takes to earn your trust." She closed her eyes, exhaling a shaky breath. "Then, let's try." They stood there, wrapped in a fragile moment of unity, tears and hope mingling in the quiet mansion. Outside, the fountain trickled softly, and the sun shone on the estate that had once felt like a prison. Now it was a place where a new chapter could begin. In the weeks that followed, Tasha and Maxwell worked to rebuild their relationship from the ground up. Tasha insisted on returning to her normal life part-time, picking up shifts at the bookstore again. Maxwell supported her decision, giving her space to maintain her identity. They spent evenings talking, no longer avoiding hard questions. He showed her every corner of the mansion, opened up about his past, his failed engagement. She shared her childhood memories, her aspirations, and the hurt she felt at his deceit. Slowly, they forged a bond built not on necessity, but on understanding. Tasha let herself fall for the man behind the wealth, seeing both his flaws and his genuine tenderness. Maxwell discovered the depth of Tasha's strength and her kind heart. Each day they learned to respect each other more deeply. Their relationship was not without arguments. Trust is not rebuilt overnight. Sometimes, Tasha would lash out, remembering the pain of betrayal. Sometimes, Maxwell would struggle with controlling habits. But each time, they chose to communicate, to listen. Months passed, and a soft, abiding love blossomed between them. The staff noted how Tasha's laughter filled the halls, how Maxwell's stern expressions softened when she entered a room. The once cold mansion felt alive. One evening, while watching a sunset from the balcony, Maxwell turned to Tasha and asked if they could renew their vows. Tasha's heart soared. She agreed. They held a small ceremony in the mansion's garden, attended by only a few close friends. Carla was not invited. Tasha had set that boundary, but Carla's mother came, contrite and grateful for Tasha's forgiveness of past issues. The judge who officiated was a family friend of Maxwell's, and this time, Tasha signed her name with a full heart, no confusion or lies. Maxwell smiled through misty eyes, slipping a new ring on her finger, one chosen together. When the ceremony ended, they shared a kiss filled with promise. A gentle breeze stirred the rose petals at their feet. Tasha felt a sense of peace she had never known, as though her life had led her here through all the twists and turns, heartbreak and fear. Later that night, Tasha and Maxwell stood in the hallway, the same hallway where she once felt so trapped, hearing thunder rumble in the distance. He wrapped his arms around her, and she rested her head on his shoulder. She listened to the faint echo of thunder from afar. There was no fear now, only the warmth of his embrace and the certainty of a love that had survived deception, danger. "I love you," he murmured into her hair. Tasha smiled, tightening her hold on him. "I love you too." They turned off the lights, leaving the hallway in peaceful darkness, side by side. For Tasha, it was the end of a long, winding journey and the beginning of a future she had never dared to imagine. A future where she was truly cherished, not as a pawn in a grand scheme, but as the woman who had captured a once-guarded heart. The storm outside grew distant, and the quiet hush of the mansion felt comforting instead of frightening. Tasha no longer felt trapped. She felt safe in Maxwell's arms. And as they walked upstairs, hand in hand, she felt certain that their story on an accidental marriage would continue with the happiness they had fought so hard to find.